All right, everyone. Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Elections Weekly. We got a full panel for you this week, covering the latest political news. I'm your host, Eric Cunningham, and as usual, we have Dylan Brown, Joe Szymanski, and Kraz Grenitz here with us. This has been a pretty eventful news day. It's resulted in a change in our schedule. We were originally planning to release ratings updates today. That plan has been sadly pushed back until next week, while this entire thing continues to resolve itself. But we do have an interesting discussion for you guys here today. We're excited to talk about it and to talk about the results of Tuesday's primaries as well, elections that we had covered there. So you want to start off with Roe, or you want to start off with Mo? I guess that's the
I
big
think we
question
should
here.
probably start off with the elephant in the room that is Roe.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the Supreme Court in a ruling that is multiple parts, which I'll describe separately. A majority of members of the Supreme Court have voted to overturn Roe v. Wade. 49-year-old ruling. This ends the protected right that Roe established for an abortion in up to a certain indeterminate stage of pregnancy as determined late. It also overturns Casey, which is the corollary case to Roe, decided in the 1990s. What this effectively means is at the moment, a bunch of states are looking at their trigger laws for whether or not abortion will be illegal. This includes Republican states like Mississippi, Alabama, South Dakota, among others. And there's a couple of other competitive states. Michigan, I believe, has a trigger law. Wisconsin has a law from the 1800s that regulates abortion. North Carolina has a 20-week ban, which is not a trigger law, but has not been operable because of court rulings on the matter. The ruling in this case was at various points 6-3 and 5-4. It was 6-3 to uphold the Mississippi abortion law in question here, which would have restricted abortion up until the 15th week. That was 6-3. All conservatives voted for, all liberals voted against. The overturning of Roe, that was only 5-4. John Roberts did not want to overturn Roe. And then I believe there was an additional part of the case, which was 5-1-3, where Roberts had sided off on himself, basically, agreed with the conservatives in a different way than you had the liberals. So basically, the liberals dissented in all of it, and then John Roberts did what John Roberts does in some of the other parts. I'll go ahead and throw it here to Kraz here. He's kind of our legal expert on here. He's going to be focusing on this. He's written, no offense, Dylan, but he's.
I'm 2 weeks into law school, none taken.
Yeah, but he's actually written for us about abortion before, so I'll go ahead and throw it to him, kind of talk about what this ruling is, what it kind of represents, and then we can kind of get into the panel discussion here.
So obviously the ruling overturns Roe v. Wade. That means that I think in probably 20 states there's trigger bans now. So abortion becomes illegal it becomes illegal when the state asks a court to lift the injunction on that trigger ban. Presumably all those bans have been enjoined by various courts, so we'll have to go back and ask, but I think a few states have already done it. So Oklahoma, Alabama, a few others triggered their bans today. Missouri, I think, too. And so essentially what this means is that, this is a pretty seismic shift in American politics, obviously. And I thought the decision, the most interesting part of it was probably Kavanaugh's concurrence. One of the things I wrote a few months ago when it looked like Roe was going to get overturned was I said, look, this is going to beget a lot more litigation, just different litigation, because states are going to be frustrated that, private companies are paying for people to go out of state. They're going to be frustrated that, California is funding women, to come from states where abortion is banned and get abortions in California. And there might be litigation about how much can states restrict travel, how much can states restrict, or control out-of-state conduct, stuff like that. Kavanaugh's concurrence is interesting because he essentially shuts a lot of that down. He basically says, no, in advance, which is rare. Usually judges will just say, we're not deciding this today. But he said, no, states cannot regulate travel to other states to obtain an abortion, presumably, which means that they couldn't regulate out-of-state conduct either. They couldn't criminalize out-of-state conduct. So that I found to be fairly interesting. There was some suggestion that they wouldn't rule on it, but then when a state tried to regulate travel, they would say that, the fetus is a person, or the state can rule the fetus as a person's. But it seems like Kavanaugh is basically saying, no, states can't get around this by just saying the fetus is a person. You can't take out of state. Basically, he's shutting this down right now. So that's interesting. But But yeah, I mean, the ruling was pretty straightforward. It was 213 pages, which is one of the longest cases ever in the U.S. reports for the Supreme Court. So that's fun fact. But yeah, I mean, I still got to work through large chunks of it, but I read most of the majority and Kavanaugh's concurrent. So those were interesting. But yeah, if anyone else has anything they want to know about, I'm happy to answer or throw it to someone else.
And I can mention the states that have some of these trigger laws here. So
Yeah.
as of right now, the states which have trigger laws that would make abortion illegal are Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Alabama, and South Dakota. Those
Kentucky
have,
as well.
Yeah, Kentucky as well. There are additional ones that have heartbeat bans. Those would be states like, for example, I believe those would be like Texas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, Ohio, Iowa, and North Dakota, and Idaho. And then there's a bunch of other states that regulate up to viability. That's within the threshold of current law. Oh, sorry, Joe.
I was going to say the Washington Post actually has a pretty good map here
Mhm.
that shows the different types of laws here. So obviously the states that Merrick mentioned with complete trigger laws are all there, but there are also 7 states that have a trigger ban that takes effect 30 days after a decision that would have come down overturning Roe v. Wade. Those states are Texas, Mississippi, Tennessee, North Dakota, Wyoming, Utah, and Idaho. All of those states have trigger bans that will take effect 30 days after after today. Technically, now the written was 30 days after Roe v. Wade would be overturned. That means 30 days from today, abortion will be declared banned in those 7 states, along with the other the other 7 that have already declared. And then we also look at states that could potentially join them. Obviously, Nebraska is going to be a big one. Iowa is expected to be a big one. Indiana is a big one. Ohio is a big one. West Virginia is a big one. Florida is a big one. Georgia, South Carolina. Montana has there are rumors that Montana, while technically abortion is protected in Montana, there are rumors that the Montana governor and legislature may now try and appeal for that to be overturned, basically, and to pursue an abortion ban. So there are at least, along with the about 14 states that have these bans already in place, there's probably about, I would say, around another, let me count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 states that would be added on top of that. So that would mean half, which seems to fit just right in with this issue here, that half of the states of the nation would have some sort of abortion ban or very, very limiting time period. Most of these would have around 6-week heartbeat bills. Of the ones that I listed off that do not have trigger laws in place.
And for comparison here, only a limited number of states have no limit at all on abortion. For these states would be, I think, Alaska, Oregon, Colorado, New Mexico, New Jersey, and Vermont. Those are the only ones that have no gestational limit on abortion. And of course, partial birth abortion, dilation and extraction, is illegal federally as well. That's been the case for about 2 decades now. Since that was passed in the 2000s, that's been upheld as well. That's an additional limit there. Basically, the gist of it is a lot of states are going from having effectively very limited restrictions on abortions, or inoperable ones that were about to be struck down by courts because of Roe v. Wade, now have an opportunity to enforce these laws. So let's talk about the political impact here a little bit. Obviously, this has been pretty polarizing among ideological lines, I would say, almost uniformly. Interestingly, in the Senate, I'll mention, obviously it's a 50-50 split in the Senate right now. There were 3 Republican senators that did not sign on to the amicus brief for this case, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Shelley Moore Capito. Of those 3, Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins have Lisa Murkowski came out against it, obviously. Susan Collins has expressed kind of surprise about it, I think. Just a general...
That's very on brand.
Yeah, very, very, very on brand. And then Shelley Moore Capito, perhaps surprisingly, perhaps not, came out and said she supported this decision that goes back to the states. Capito has been, of course, a long time pro-choice, but she also has a very mixed abortion record, kind of like the Republican version of Bob Casey, where she's nominally pro-choice, except in every way except for voting record, which is a bit confusing. Bob Casey, of course, is also all Democratic senators, as far as I know, have come out and said they support codifying Roe v. Wade, including Joe Manchin. Whether you can call him pro-life at this point is about as dubious as whether you could call Shelley Capito pro-choice. But regardless of the state of it, you basically have right now 52 senators who are opposed to or would want to make Roe v. Wade, to put this into legislation. 48 who either would not or have not given their opinion on it. I'd imagine none of the other Republicans would be in favor of this, though. So right now, let's talk about some of the Senate races. I've heard people mentioning Nevada. Why do we think this might not be a huge impact in Nevada? I know we've mentioned, but it's actually go ahead and throw it to Joe there.
Because Adam Laxalt is not a dumbass. That's the answer I can give here, in which he's probably given the best answer out of swing state Republicans so far, which is abortion is codified and protected in Nevada, and I will not do anything to try and overturn that with a federal abortion ban, which I absolutely agree with. The point of this decision by the Supreme Court was to take away the federal government overreach over saying every state needs to have some form of abortion available, which is not something that is codified in our Constitution. And I think that it should stay that way. That does not mean that Republicans, if we take back all three bodies of government in the legislative bodies and, of course, the executive role, does not mean we should pursue a federal abortion ban, which would only make things worse. There should be a state-by-state decision that, honestly, if the states have the option, should go like the state of Kansas is doing it, and these amendments should go to the people through referendums and the like.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting point. This is actually going on to the ballot in Kansas. Kansas has the Kansas State Supreme Court established a right to an abortion under the state constitution. There is an amendment coming up in Kansas over whether or not to change that. This is probably the first referendum test of abortion. It's worth noting heartbeat bans have failed in places like South Dakota. Colorado, there is a late-term ban, a much more moderate late-term ban that failed spectacularly in Colorado. So there's kind of a spotty record with abortion restrictions in some of these referendums, but we will be seeing a test of that in Kansas coming up. That's certainly one thing to keep an eye on.
I think generally speaking, abortion bans tend to do worse in the partisan baseline. Like if you think about like it on a spectrum, total bans do bad. Like they do really bad.
Yeah.
They only passed in like Alabama and Louisiana, failed in North Dakota, failed in South. Like they do really bad. Then if you move it up to 6 weeks, they're going to fail most places still, but they do a little bit better. And then if you move it up to say 12 weeks, they do 12, right? And so it's kind of a spectrum. So I think it's not as black and white as I think people portray. I think.
Yeah. And I should say that the Kansas referendum will not be on a set abortion rule or ban. It'll be on basically just overturning the protections that the state Supreme Court put into place from that ruling. So it does not it does not technically ban abortion. It just does not allow the protections that codified the right to an abortion in Kansas from their state Supreme Court. It would take that away, which I think that makes this all the more interesting as a referendum, because I feel like that's a very lore-y topic to have a referendum about, is the decodifying of the right to an abortion.
Well, if this fails, right, it's going to be really hard for the state legislature to ban abortion because, they will have tried, it got codified by the court, and then this is going to fail. And if this fails by a lot, the next thing that's going to happen is pro-choice advocates are going to try to get a referendum to explicitly enshrine a right to abortion in the state constitution, probably for 2024. And that's happening. That's going to happen in Michigan in the fall, potentially. There might be a referendum like that on the ballot. So I think ballot referendum. Yeah.
But that's an interesting one. I want to get back to something that Crass mentioned, which is this sort of sliding scale of voter acceptability of abortion restrictions. This coincides very closely with public policy polling on abortion. Abortion polling has been extremely consistent over the last 50 years. There's been virtually no change in the baseline, aside from I think more voters now are willing to accept all abortions rather than just having a few restrictions. But comparatively speaking, about 55% of voters, according to Gallup, have said abortion should be illegal legal in some cases, not in all cases, not illegal in all cases, not legal in all cases. The least popular position by far is total ban. The second least popular position is totally allowed in all cases. The most popular position is it should be allowed at some point and not allowed past that point. Even more weird is specific polling on specific abortion regulations, not on viability dates, but on things like parental notification laws, on, for example, 24-hour waiting periods. Those tend to poll very well. They tend to get very high percentage of polling, somewhere around 60 to 70%, or anywhere from, I think, 55 to 70%, depending on the Gallup poll. They tend to poll very, very well. Specifically, the parental and spousal notification ones have historically done pretty well. So the approach going forward, there are a lot of states with ballot initiatives where these sorts of things are put up all the time. Florida has them. California has them, interestingly. And California is one of those states that does not have a complete liberalized abortion regime. There is a point in pregnancy where California abortions are not legal. I'm not sure it's enforced very well, but it's not like Oregon where there is no restriction. So obviously there's a potential for pro-choice advocates to claw back a little bit there. Is there potential for overreach, though, with some of these? Some of these specific ones where pro-life advocates might be able to get a little bit more weight, even in bluer states that have these referendum processes? Or do you think this is just going to kind of just fall around squarely where red states have abortion restrictions almost entirely, blue states allow them almost entirely, and then purple states just alter back and forth depending on which party is in charge?
Well, I think ballot referendums will get a kind of set policy in a lot of states. I'm not sure about the overreach, because I think that when you think about, like, are there any states that are going to put literally zero limits on abortion? It's probably only going to be like California and Oregon. And like, they're just not close to purple enough for it to like really matter. If you're talking about like referendums, I could see a referendum that removes all restrictions on abortion going to the ballot in a state like Wisconsin or something, and it failing. But that's not really a backlash. Like, I just see it failing. Mm-hmm. I think that if there was a backlash, I mean, maybe it'd be, a total ban that isn't popular. I mean, you kind of have to wait and see, right? You have to wait and see. And also, like, what kind of complicates this is, like, as of now, you can still get abortion pills in the mail federally. Like, they're federally legal, so states can't, like, stop you from ordering them. So, like, that complicates it, because, like, it means, like, even in places that have like a total ban, like, I'm sure there are websites going up as we speak that are like step-by-step instructions about like how to order a stockpile of abortion pills from like, wherever.
Commerce laws, baby.
Yeah, commerce. Well, so actually, this is actually not clear to me. Someone pointed out on Twitter that the Comstock Act, which is a law that is still on the books, but it hasn't been enforced in a long time. It bans the Postal Service from shipping abortion pills. And that law, like, theoretically now is totally a good law now. And of course, like, Biden is not going to enforce it. But because it is a federal law, that would mean that there's a very solid argument that states actually can ban the mailing of abortion pills into their state, because the feds have implicitly authorized them to ban it, because the feds ban it. So, like, if the feds ban it, then, like, obviously states can ban it.
But that's an interesting question, though. Is I want to go back to the abortion pills. It would be I think it's generally considered to be legal for someone to just buy an abortion pill federally. Could a clinic stockpile abortion pills themselves and then give them out to people? I'd imagine that would be litigation right there pretty quickly.
I'd have to look into this, but my understanding is if it's a legal medication federally, right? Like, I don't necessarily see, like, most of the litigation over this stuff is like, do you have to go in person to get a doctor to prescribe it, right? So, like, my perception is, like, if it's legal federally, then, like, I don't really see, like, how you could ban doctors from dispensing it within the state. There are, but the mail is easier, though, right? Like if you
Yeah,
can
the
ship
mail is
them
much
without having to go to a
easier.
doctor, like then the mail is
Mhm.
just easier. And I'm sure there are websites where you can go and look and like, how do I order abortion pills in the mail? Like
Mhm.
I'm sure that's a thing.
But yeah, the point is this is going to be pretty an interesting next few years legally because we're just kind of sorting through this thing. This is the first time this has been, as Joe said, kind of left up to the states in about 50 years. And when it was the case 50 years ago, virtually no states allowed legal abortion, at least to an extent we would consider modern acceptable. There were certainly states that allowed abortions, but there were not a ton of them that were very permissive, like most of the United States have been used to for the last 50 years. I want to hear from Dylan a little bit though here though, because I'm getting a little bit more of like the more left perspective on this. Is you probably saw this coming, but what are your thoughts on this and how this Democrats are going to use this going forward? I know you're pretty pessimistic on Democratic governing, but is there a way they
Oh,
can capitalize on this and claw back a little bit?
ah. So look, yeah, this is a bad decision. I expected it. Um, it was kind of clear from the moment the decision got leaked 2 months ago that this was going to happen. So I don't know why I know I don't think anybody's surprised. What does surprise me is how unprepared Democrats seemed to be for this.
Mhm.
Um, there were the Senate Judiciary said, "Oh, we're going to have a hearing in a month to talk about the effects." Why? Why a month? You're going to wait until it's gone from people's minds before you try talking about it?
They're on vacation for the next 2 weeks.
If that's not the perfect encapsulation of Democrats, I don't know what is. No, look, you're right. I am incredibly pessimistic about Democrats' ability to claw anything back from this. I do think the best path forward is referendums at the state level. Nobody will get on board with my federal referendum idea, and I'm sad about it
No,
because
I get on board with that.
I think it would just be a lot of it would be fun and it would fix a lot of problems quickly.
But no,
I get on
yeah,
board with that.
that's
No
not
one
it.
has the cojones to do it, though. None of these politicians have the cojones to
No,
allow for something like that. Let's be real, though. I would
no.
be totally on board for it. This is a decision that should go to the people.
Yeah.
Again, this should if it is able in states to go to the people through referendums, it should go to the people.
Mhm.
Let
Yeah.
the
This is
people
this has sort of been
decide.
my principal objection to Roe is I don't really have I would generally consider myself mostly pro life. I'm pretty apathetic after viability, if we're being honest. But I think the national debate and the national consensus has been really hampered by Roe. I think, and I'm not alone in this. Ruth Bader Ginsburg thinks it's something similar, which is along the lines of it didn't actually solve the issue in place. It didn't change anyone's mind. Usually, with these landmark decisions, we expect it to change people's minds, at least in the long run, or at least in the long run, opinion will shift to it.
Well,
Opinion
but
has shifted to people liking Roe, but it's not shifted on the issue of abortion at all. We're pretty much where we were 50 years ago in a lot of respects.
well, voters don't really. You can ask them two questions that are contradictory to each other, and they'll agree with both in a poll. That's how voters are. So, yes, the opinion hasn't really shifted on abortion, but I think you would agree that voters both dislike and like the status quo. They say they want change, but they will vote for the status quo. And I don't think that most voters wanted this to change. Whatever their feelings are on abortion, I don't think they wanted this to change because voters generally like things to stay the same, even if they say they don't.
Well, I think when you look at polls, like 70% say that they favor Roe, but I think 538 did like a kind of an analysis of all the various issue polling, and what they said is like, don't take that number as like 70% actually agree with Roe's trimester framework and like the strict scrutiny analysis, which like is not at all
No,
what
most
they're
people
answering.
haven't read Roe.
Right. So what they were saying was like, when 70% of Americans say like they favor Roe, what they're really saying is 70% of Americans have some intuition that abortion should be sometimes legal in some circumstances.
Mhm.
And like, if you were to ask me, is 30% of the country like completely pro-life? I would say like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
And so like that 70% number sounds right to me intuitively. And I think that there's a lot of like Americans have very nuanced kind of opinions on it. And I think a lot of it is like abortion should be legal if it's for a good reason, or if it's early, or if you really need it, or if you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's some level of that. And so, yeah. And then Jonathan Reutenberg in the chat, I thought I should respond to this, said Wisconsin and Kansas don't allow initiated referenda. This is a good point. In some states, the legislature has to put referenda on the ballot, so people can't just like get it on the ballot in every state. I'm actually not sure what the breakdown is between like
Mhm.
We-
Carolina is another state like this as
We
well.
need
Right, so I
federal ballot initiatives.
No, I
Yes.
just like that idea.
Yes.
I'm not a fan of initiatives.
Yes.
Actually, I'm really not. I know this is kind of I'm kind of alone here because I have three. I have a Yankee and Joe Szymanski, and then I have a Yankee and Dylan Wade, and I got a West Coaster and Kraz Granitz. I'm the only one here from the South where we don't have ballot initiatives. And I'm like, I don't like these things. I don't want them. I don't want them at all.
You don't like them because you don't have them. Once you
No,
have them, you
I'm
will
very
see.
happy not
no,
having
they're
them.
kind of fun. I voted on kidney dialysis clinics multiple times now. It's such an
Voters are
amazing
dumb.
experience.
Like, no, I don't want to mean voters. Yeah, voters are dumb in the sense that they don't know everything on the ballot. Do you think California or voters seriously went to the polls and were like, you know what? I have an informed and intelligent perspective on whether or not pigs in Kansas should be not allowed to be sold here in California.
And yet we let them vote on presidents.
We do, because then the president represents you and probably knows a little bit more, or at least is willing to learn. I mean, again,
Are they?
I'm a big fan of representative democracy. I'm not a fan of direct democracy so
This
much.
This is actually an interesting thing, though, and I was working through this. Like, representative I actually think one of the reasons why there's been like, I mean, obviously Roe has always been a big fight, but I think one of the reasons why particularly progressives are just like so not amenable to the idea of like you leave it to the states, you leave it to the legislature, whatever, is because I think there is like a lot more doubt about the democratic process generally and representative democracy generally. I don't mean institutionally among progressives, like there's fraud or like they whatever, but like I mean more like I think a lot of progressives have this intuition more so than they did 10 years ago that like my state legislature will never represent me. Like my state, like I will never be able to vote for a majority in the legislature because they'll just rig the game through gerrymandering. And I think kind of the gerrymandering fights and all that have, I think, given people a more pessimistic view of representative democracy because there's some feeling like, well, how is it representative if like I never win, right? Like I can never win, so like whatever.
And beyond that, I mean, I take a very pessimistic view of my own party because I don't feel like they're actually. I want to fight on this issue. Does my party? Doesn't seem like they do.
I do think it's Well, wait, finish up.
What?
As I finished what you were saying, I was gonna say something else.
Oh, because what did House Democrats do when this was announced? They went to the Capitol to sing "God Bless America" against protesters? Question mark. Which that's a choice. That is a choice that you could make. It's not the right choice. I don't know. I think there is something to the idea that progressives have a very pessimistic view of representative democracy, but I would also say that progressives don't have a particularly optimistic view about the average voter either, because in a lot of cases, progressives see a lot of disinformation, a lot of institutional weight against them, which trickles down to the average voter. So I'm not sure. I think referendums are the right answer here. Not just because I have no faith in Democrats being able to fight back on this, but because I just think referendums are good in general, but also because I don't think Democrats are going to make any headway on this. Yes, there are 52 votes theoretically to codify Roe, but there's 48 for a filibuster.
Mm-hmm.
and a red wave incoming.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say that I think Democrats, like, it's kind of amazing how flat-footed they seemingly have been caught in, even
I
though,
know.
like,
It's
even
been
though,
out
like,
for 2 months.
I wrote multiple like articles about like the end of Roe in like December when this case got argued in like mid-December, and like, you know, I wrote articles
And it
about
was leaked back in May. It was leaked
was
back
leaked
in like
to- It
late
was
April, early
leaked.
May.
They literally had a month. They had a month.
It's been almost 2 months. It's been almost 2 months.
Consider the sequence of events here. Dobbs gets argued in December. If you listen to the oral argument, you can tell where this is going, right? Like Roberts tries to take out some kind of compromise. Kavanaugh and Barrett are clearly going towards overturning Roe. Like you can tell where this is going in December when the case is argued. Okay.
Mhm.
All that, we go all that time. Then the case gets leaked. Literally the full decision. Like this is like, I mean, like full 100-page decision gets leaked in May. And what
It's early May. I
Early
was
May.
on my couch. I was watching hockey. It was my birthday. I was a very
Yep,
happy man. And then the fucking decision dropped. You know?
Wait, and
Like,
so
it was-
then what do they do? What do they do when the leaked draft drops? Okay,
Really nothing.
they nothing. They went literally, they Chuck Schumer held the vote in the Senate on codifying Roe. It failed. It didn't even get a majority. It like failed 51-49 or something like that. And
Because it wasn't actually codifying Roe.
wasn't
was a
codifying
bunch-
Roe,
It was a bunch of things Manchin,
It was the Women's Health-
Murkowski, and
which-
Collins didn't want.
Yeah, it was the Women's Health Protection Act, which, among other
Which-
things, would have
look-
eliminated conscious protections for hospital workers, which is
Like-
like Murkowski and Collins were not going to be on board for that, and neither is Manchin.
Like,
So
I
then-
think that's a fine bill, but it wasn't going to pass in any circumstance.
So yeah, so
Why?
they don't. So like, and what's funny about this is like, look, you see where this is going. Why not hold? And I think Dylan, maybe you were the one that suggested, like, why not hold a vote in the Senate on federal protections for abortion only in the case of the life of the mother? Like, you only hold the vote on that, and you like try to make Republicans say no to that. And then
Yes.
if you get that, then you go and say, okay,
No,
only in
not
cases
not
of
even
rape and
just
incest. Like,
not even just life of the mother, rape, incest, life of the mother.
Right.
If you want to hold it as 3 votes, hold
Yeah,
it as
exactly.
3 votes.
So you hold it as 3 votes. Like, you really try to make Republicans take an unpopular position. They didn't do that. They held 1 vote and they left town. They went on vacation.
They took,
And
they
they
took
went
one
on-
hell. They took one vote on the only way they could have made that bill less popular is to have established a Medicare for all system for abortions where everyone can just get an abortion paid for by the federal government. Like
Yeah.
the only way they could have
They
made
went-
that bill more controversial.
No, I want this to be emphasized. They went on vacation. They went
Yeah,
on
yeah.
vacation.
And then it was like, okay, it was kind of like, okay, like that's like, I was like, all right, it's the draft opinion. So like things could change. So like not a great look for them, but like maybe they got something else up their sleeve. Who knows?
No, these are Democrats, Kraz.
the opinion came down today. And you know what they did today? They recessed for vacation. Like,
And they
I
said,
just
we're going to
think-
hold a hearing next month to talk about the effects of this decision. Not, hey,
regardless of your perspective on abortion, I think that it's kind of an incredible juxtaposition to see the Democratic leadership like be mad about this and just kind of like leave town and be like whatever, and also be like 80 years old
Yeah,
and like
their
just like leave town
voters-
and go on vacation.
their voters
then-
are in the streets protesting. And
And they're
their
just gone.
politicians are either
then-
on vacation or singing God Bless America in front of the Capitol against the protesters.
But
who
no,
are
that's the
mad
funny
at the
thing. That's the funny
institutions.
thing here is like if you look at this,
My
right? I
fucking
mean,
party.
Democrats during the Supreme Court nominations, they were screaming like DEFCON thought, like Roe is done, Roe is done. If you confirm this, Roe is done, Roe is done. This would be the worst thing ever, the end of the republic. And then when this actually happens, they go on vacation not once but twice.
And then the juxtaposition between that and like, and there are multiple GOP states where they didn't have trigger bans on the books, and the governors have said we're coming back for a special session. Like we're going to ban abortion. Like 2 weeks from now, we're going to be in session, like passing abortion bans. And like Democrats are like, oh God, like fuck, my United flight got canceled. Like, like oh,
Yeah.
staffing shortages.
No, like honestly, don't even look at the abortion issue. How many times did Republicans vote to repeal Obamacare while Obama was president?
A lot. We did
Is
it
this
a
a
lot.
They
lot?
didn't. You guys didn't. You
And
guys
then, and
didn't
then they got no
care.
balls and didn't do it when he
We
was-
did it over
he
and
was
over
gone.
again. Yeah, we did it so
Yeah,
much.
it's not a very
This
good
is-
example because they kind of choked on that
Okay,
one.
yeah,
once
they dropped
actually-
the ball at the. They dropped
But when
the
the
ball
actual
at the
thing
end.
happened, we didn't do too good of a job of actually,
Yeah,
They dropped the
we,
ball
we
at
were
the
very
end.
good
but
at
you
repealing
can't say
Obamacare
you guys
until we
didn't-
actually had the opportunity to repeal Obamacare. That
But
was
you-
the.
But you can't say you guys didn't fight. You choked it, but at least you didn't go on vacation.
Yeah, but we Republicans
well, that
had
was
the rough
Ted Cruz's
equivalent.
fault. Ted Cruz stopped everyone from going
Yeah.
on vacation in
Yeah.
2013.
I mean, look, I'm going to be honest here. That was the rough equivalent of throwing a 1 yard. It's the last play of the football game. You're at the 1 yard
Oh,
line
no,
in the Super
sports
Bowl,
example.
and then you throw a pass down the middle and it gets intercepted. That's the rough equivalent of what Democrats did with Obamacare, or what Republicans did with Obamacare. What Democrats are doing is closer to like the Falcons
Dropping
just
the
deciding
ball
they're
and
up
walking
28
off
to
the
3.
field.
They're up 28 to 3, and they just decide, nope, no more. We're done. We're gonna.
No, honestly, you said when you were asking me to answer that I was pessimistic about Democrats' response. Have I been given any reason to be anything but? Has there literally been anything? I mean, God.
Not really. No.
God. I mean, look, whatever you want to say about Elizabeth Warren, at least she was protesting when the decision got leaked instead of going on vacation. I'll take it.
I can't believe I forgot that they went on vacation after the decision was leaked, and they were just like, "Nah, we're still going to go on our mini vacations here."
And okay, even now, they can still do what Kraz and I were saying. Make Republicans take the unpopular position, because now it's actually real. It's tangible. It's not just a thing that's going to happen in the future. It's happened.
But Dylan,
Make-
this is you're ignoring the fact that every moment they spend on anything other than Build Back Better means that they could do something more that has a better chance of passing, or at least accomplishing something for them than Build Back Better. You literally saw that, right? Which is that the some House Democrats were concerned that passing the gun control bill could make it harder to pass Build Back Better, and they were skeptical of the efforts as a result.
God.
I do think an interesting question is like, would Republicans kill the filibuster to ban abortion nationwide?
I
Not
hope
in
not.
its-
That would be stupid.
I don't
See,
think the
that
party
would
would
be
in
a
its
stupid
current form,
decision.
but
We're too
in-
tame. We're too tame for it. Like the bill that's going out right now.
No,
the last time we had the Senate, it was 20 weeks. This time the House is proposing 15. The House Republicans are proposing 15. Again, for perspective here, 15 Republican senators voted for the gun control bill. 14 Republican members of the House of Representatives, which has about twice as four
Okay.
times as many Republicans or whatever voted for the gun control bill.
Okay,
And these
Eric.
guys are only like 15 weeks. That seems like
Okay.
pretty reasonable.
But Eric, here's the problem. Like half of the senators who are voting for the gun control bill are also retiring.
Yep. Or not up for re-election. Or
no,
Todd Young, who has no opposition in the primary.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I'm not going to say you guys are too tame for it. I don't think you're too tame for it. I don't think you'll have the votes. You would need.
No,
Maybe,
I think Republicans will have the votes. I think Republicans will have at
I was
least
about to say.
55 to 60 Senate seats after 2024 if things go well for them. The bigger issue is there's a lot of moving parts here, right? Like if they don't have 60 votes for it, right, then they have to kill the filibuster for it.
Mhm.
And then it becomes,
yeah.
do you have the votes to kill the filibuster, given how resistant
Yeah.
the party is, even when they were in power?
Yeah, and it's a red line. It's a red line for Mitch McConnell. It's a red line for most of leadership.
if they're at 50, okay, say they're at 56 seats, they have the votes to kill the filibuster.
But does leadership want like that? Like that's kind of where I'm at. Where I'm
Is
like,
McConnell
the
going to be
difference-
forced to
the
take
thing
a
is,
more
the
difference here,
hardline
Dylan,
stance?
the difference here is Republican leadership is effective, and are able to prevent lunatics from doing things and
But
controlling
see,
the
my
agenda.
thing is
Sure,
like, I don't
but
think
you
I
guys
think-
don't have a whole caucus of you guys have like 5 or 6 lunatics. If you guys do well in 22 and 24, you're gonna have 10 to 12 lunatics. That becomes a little harder to control
so
than Rand
I
Paul,
think
Ted Cruz, and Mike Lee.
there's a lot of moving parts here because do you have the votes to ban abortion without killing the filibuster? If no, do you have the votes to kill the filibuster to do it? And 3, like, that's something they want to do, right? Like, I think deep down, like I think there's a lot of leadership that like doesn't care about this as much as probably like grassroots does. So like then there's like, what does leadership really want to? And then there's a calculation of like, well, if we do this, what are the odds it gets struck down by the court is outside our commerce power, and then we've just like wasted all this political capital.
No,
on
it
something.
won't. It won't get struck.
Or, well, I don't know. Like this is actually kind of an interesting, like, well, I'm not gonna get into the legal question here, but like it's kind of interesting. But like, you know, so then you have to consider, okay, what if it gets struck down, and what if it doesn't get struck down, but there's so much backlash, we lose, and then it just goes away in 3 years anyway, right? Like there's some level of like you have to consider like the way the political costs here too, of like we're going to spend all this political capital to do this. Like how long is it going to last?
No, look, do I think they're going to pass a total ban? No, I don't. Not yet. I think that's a long-term project, though. Because I think whoever the 2024 nominee is, whether it's Trump, DeSantis, or somebody else, is going to, in the end, support a total abortion ban in their platform. I do think that's where this is headed. I don't think that's where the Senate will head initially. But I do think you could see like a 6-week ban. I do think you could see a 6-week ban.
Mm-hmm. But before we get too caught up, I know we've probably been going a lot. I don't know if you have much more we could talk about with abortion, but we do have, of course, the Mo Brooks race. I want to get into that because that's we can't let the abortion distract from the fact that Mo Brooks had his career end in the most hilarious fashion. So unless we have anything else more we want to talk about on abortion,
somebody asked, does Roe help the GOP with any demographics? It doesn't help anybody.
Tejanos. It helps Tejanos almost certainly.
Who?
South Texas. Tejanos. South Texas.
Oh, okay. I don't think it helps on a large scale with anybody. We kind of talked about this when the decision got leaked. This isn't going to be a mobilizing issue for most people.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a group it would help them with, it would be Tejanos in South Texas. That would be. Yeah,
I'd agree.
They're very pro-life in general. Myra Flores obviously just won. Eddie Lucio in the Senate or Texas Senate put out a statement. Who's a Democrat in the Texas Senate put on a statement basically praising God for the end of Roe v. Wade, among other things. So
hold on. I'm sorry. I got one more thing to say about
go ahead.
They also supported a pro-life congressman as of like 3 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, Henry Cuellar. Yeah, and he said he's still pro-life, and most of his constituents are pro-life too. So
leadership. Jim Clyburn and Pelosi went to campaign for him. So if they want to say they're so concerned about Roe v. Wade getting overturned, maybe don't support a pro-life congressman against a pro-choice.
I mean, to be fair, they've spent their money supporting worse candidates in the Republican side of the field. You know, like Doug Mastriano, who's within striking distance of Josh Shapiro. You know, they've spent their money on worse, basically.
I mean, you're not wrong, but but it's just more evidence of Democrats defeating themselves. It's what we do.
Yeah, but and that'll actually be interesting. Obviously, we have ratings changes coming up. South Texas is going to be a really big battlefield coming up. But let's go on to Alabama, where Mo Brooks had his career ended in spectacular fashion. Losing all but one county in Alabama.
He won what?
He won Shelby County. He won Shelby County, which was the only county to vote against Richard Shelby in 1992.
Wait, Shelby County was the only county to vote against Richard Shelby.
Yeah. Shelby County. Basically, he did the best around his home of Huntsville. He still didn't win his district. He did pretty good around Birmingham, and then the rest of the state, Katie Boyd Britt just utterly demolished Mo Brooks. This is a 63-37 win. As of right now, actually, it's closer to 63.02 to 37.998. Obviously, Mo Brooks fans were not pleased by this. Mo Brooks in particular went on one of the. I watched his concession speech. It is probably the most bitter rant I've ever seen a politician engage in after losing. Among other things, he said that the Democrats now have 2 nominees on the ballot. He basically said that the globalists have won. He said that if voters are basically insinuated voters are too stupid to vote, there's no point in having a democracy if they're not voting for him over Katie Britt. among other things, it was very, very one of the strangest political speeches I've watched. Britt obviously was the establishment favorite here. She did really well in Southern Alabama. Mo Brooks did. I don't want to say he did really well because he did not do really well in Northern Alabama. He did better in Northern Alabama. He almost was competitive in a few counties up there, almost won a few. But so what do we think of this? Obviously, Mo Brooks had the Trump endorsement. He got unendorsed for going woke, and now he went broke as a result of his wokeness here. What do you think of specifically the last month of his campaign was an experience? What do you think is the lesson here for potential politicians in the future?
Well, the lesson that none of them seem to learn until it happens to them is you can't trust Donald Trump. They never learn it. Every single one is like, oh my God, Trump turned his back on me.
It's the leopards eating faces meme.
Yeah, I hope the next person learns this lesson. Next person fails to learn the lesson.
Well, the problem is you need to be able. Probably it's a political reality thing where like a lot of them need Trump to get in the door and they need to build their own brands, but some of them just aren't talented enough to actually build their own brands.
I was about to say you need to be able to build a brand though.
Like Ron DeSantis has built his own brand. Brian Kemp, Katie Britt, build your own brand. But for whatever reason, it seems like Mo Brooks struggled with that.
Say what you will,
because he comes from Huntsville. He comes from Huntsville.
No, it's because his whole campaign was about stop the steal.
I am going to read you a tweet that I sent out way back in 2021 about this race. Something I feel like people are underestimating is Richard Shelby's influence is still quite massive in Alabama. Him backing Katie Britt in that primary is going to be important and will make Brooks have to work for it. Brooks is also being from Huntsville won't help him either.
Yes, those things don't help. But I feel like, okay, look at Pennsylvania as the alternate here. Dr. Oz won despite a geographic disadvantage, I think, through both his own branding and the Trump endorsement. Mo Brooks could have won this race. He very well could have. He had the most influential endorsement in the Republican Party. Yes, Richard Shelby is influential, but he's not the former president. Mo Brooks just didn't campaign. Honestly, I don't think it's more complicated than that. He ran on, his campaign was, I'm endorsed by Trump, stop the steal. And then it became about Trump, please re-endorse me. I'm sorry I went woke.
No, literally, the Notes message, we have mentioned this before, is one of the most pathetic things I have ever seen from a politician.
He was down so bad.
I've never seen somebody down so bad.
Like when you're in middle school and that guy who's like, you know what? Like every time my crush rejects me, like I'm just gonna do more push-ups. Like it's gonna like motivate me. Like that was like Mo Brooks and his this lack of an endorsement has just motivated me to but also he can't form his own brand because his brand is just like stop the steal. Like it's like your whole brand is election fraud. Like
didn't Mo Brooks thank Trump for unendorsing him?
Yes, that's what I said. He literally was like, "Thank you for unendorsing me. This is the kick in the pants I need to like run a better campaign." So, literally like down so horrendous. I've never seen anything like it.
It's hilarious. It's the fact that it was the groveling. The groveling was the funniest part. Like it wasn't even like regular groveling. It was opening like, "Daddy, please don't, please take me back." It was groveling by the bedside after a breakup. It's on your knees.
It literally had the vibe of like you just got rejected. You're drunk. It's like the next Friday, and you just send this long rambling message.
Well, speaking of that, then the message that comes a week later, the angry vitriolic message. Did you guys see Mo Brooks's comments in an interview about Trump?
No, this is by far the funniest thing that comes of like Trump pissing people off is the fact that like these people will then decide to screw him over. And that's what Mo Brooks is potentially deciding to do, as being
But it's
like
not going to work.
a relatively key individual who's going to be like, yeah, I'll show. And Eric's gone. Okay. But anyways, he would be a relatively key individual to be like, yeah, sure, I'll go ahead and testify to the January 6th committee. Sure, why not? That's not a problem. I'll go ahead and do that.
Mo Brooks better be careful. If he asked for a pardon, he better be careful testifying. He won't. He won't. Regardless, though, it will never not be funny. And Mo Brooks's angry rejection will not teach anybody this lesson. I mean,
the thing is, before he endorsed Trump, he basically said beforehand, you can't trust this guy. Then he trusted him, and then he ran for Senate twice, not once but twice, expecting this endorsement. He finally got the endorsement. The extent of his campaign was putting on Twitter that he had been endorsed by President Trump, and then that was it. Like there's no excuse. Like Katie Britt is clearly a very, very talented figure. She's very, very talented. You do not win. You do not go from having no job in politics, aside from being a campaign chief of staff, to taking a Senate seat without being a very good politician. But the best way to stop is if he campaigned. And the thing is, I don't think he was used to campaigning or governing. I don't believe he has a single bill of import other than renaming post offices. I think Alabamans expected a little bit more, in terms of achievements. Like, I think there was a lot here that was fundamentally flawed with him before even getting the Trump endorsement.
Mo Brooks pulled a Democratic Party and just didn't try.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I guess
that's one way to put it.
Yeah, it's worth it. He had the endorsement of Mike Durant. He technically, Katie Britt only got 45% of the vote. He had Mike Durant's endorsement. Is that enough to usually? No, but that should have given him a little bit of a chance.
But he didn't even try after that because his campaign. He started to campaign at the end of the first round, but then he stopped again at the second round, and it just became, "Please endorse me," and. What did he think?
And when we talk about the groveling, like the extent of the grovel, even beyond that, literally just retweeting any random person on Twitter that had the re-endorse Mo hashtag up. Like 15-year-old populists that are convinced they're political analysts. Like the level of down bad, I don't think we've seen in politics maybe ever. It was just genuinely astonishing how inept this campaign was in the last few weeks.
Yeah, somebody asked if we're going to play taps. He doesn't deserve.
No, he doesn't deserve taps.
He doesn't deserve it.
No.
I feel like taps is reserved for politicians who at least tried.
Yeah, or achieved something at some point. The Abby Finkenauer, we played it for her because it was funny, but also like she was considered a rising star. Was Mo Brooks ever a rising star? No.
Who are we playing it for next week? Are we got any taps contenders?
Well,
yes.
Let's move into next week. So next week we do have a couple of taps opportunities, folks. We will be back here next week. So this week was supposed to be really fun before New York was like, well, we drew this really gerrymandered map, and now we're pushing our House elections back about 2 months. Or else this week would have been really fun because New York has their statewide primaries. Colorado holds some primaries. Illinois holds some primaries, and Utah is now one of a matter of conversation, as it seems like people are trying to go after Blake Moore and John Curtis in their 2 House seats. So this will be a late night.
What?
But why?
They sound so boring.
Yeah, well, again, Blake Moore. I don't know what's wrong with Blake Moore. John Curtis has been viewed as an object of suspicion by Republicans in Utah for a while. And when I say reason, imagine, for example, if there's a Democrat in New Jersey, and he was the former leader of a county Democratic Party and had run for office under a county Democratic Party, and then runs for Congress as a Democrat and wins. Would you be suspicious of this person? That's basically why Republicans are suspicious of John Curtis.
You misspoke there. You said he led a county Democratic Party. He led a county.
No, John Curtis led a county. I was saying hypothetically, if this was in New Jersey, right?
If he led a county Democratic Party and then ran as a Republican.
Yeah, either one. Like,
okay,
they're suspicious of him because he was a Democrat, and not just any Democrat. He ran for Congress as a Democrat. He was a county head of the Democratic Party in Utah County. He ran as the mayor. I believe the mayor of Provo is an independent office, so it's not like he had partisanship there. And then you have this Project Veritas thing, which comes out lately, which I'll mention, of course. I'll preface this with Project Veritas is known for deceptive video editing, but supposedly the video has a field director saying that he's not really a conservative, that he opposes trigger laws, and that he's not only a Republican because he can't win as a Democrat. Also, he voted for the January 6th Commission, which is probably the more direct example of things.
Project Veritas records a field organizer saying something to persuade a voter and thinks that it's groundbreaking.
Yeah, exactly. I don't trust Project Veritas at all, for what it's worth.
Yeah, but no, we do have a TAPS contender.
Wait, so who's he going up against? Did I hear he's not double bunked with Moore, right? It's just
No, it's let me check here.
They're probably some really white sounding Mormon name.
But also Utah Republicans are not like Utah Republicans are generally more open to like moderates. So I'm not.
I mean, Evan McMullen got what percentage of the vote?
Yeah,
too much.
You know what? This might be the only time you and I agree about an election result, Joe.
Hey!
Well, as the only person who actually voted for Evan McMullen and regrets it.
Shame.
Should have voted for Gary Johnson.
I should have voted for Gary Johnson. You're right. I should have voted for Gary Johnson. If you were going to
vote for a right winger other than Trump, it should have been
The good
Johnson.
news is that in North Carolina, write-in votes do not count for candidates that are not on the ballot. So technically, my vote did not count as anything other than a generic write-in. But what I was going to say here is that Curtis represents the 4th district, which is basically really conservative parts. Actually, no. Does he represent the 3rd or the 4th district?
The 4th is Burgess Owens, I think.
No, he's in the 2nd, which is the Salt Lake.
Did they get renumbered?
No.
They may have gotten
Owens
renumbered.
in the 4th district. Curtis is in the 3rd district. The 2nd district is
somebody.
Oh yeah, the 3rd has a bunch of rural Utah, like half of a really Democratic county, part of Utah County, and part of Salt Lake City area. So yeah, he's basically a very conservative district. The 2nd has the Salt Lake City portion along with rural Utah, which is of course a very fair and compact district that definitely does not violate any standards of compact district drawing in any way whatsoever. But yeah, Utah will be interesting. I think Joe is paying attention to a different race though in Colorado, potential TAPS contender.
Yes,
on the Republican side
Doug
there.
Lamborn, the 5th district rep from Colorado Springs is. There's been a lot of chitter chatter, rumblings. The rumblings are going about in Colorado's 5th congressional district. Potentially, Lamborn is facing a challenge mainly from a guy by the name, I believe, of by Doug Williams. If I can, if I can pull up the Colorado House elections page here on my computer here, but yeah, so Lamborn is a guy who's he's been a questionable guy. Yeah, Dave Williams, who's he's a state representative. He's a former vice chair of the El Paso Republican County Committee, and he also is a guy whose Twitter name is Dave Let's Go Brandon Williams. So. This is the type of guy we're dealing with here. But
now that being said, is this a guy who supports Medicare for all and deporting all immigrants and then replacing them with
No, he does not. He is not Michael Cassidy. Eric, your AirPods have died, I think. Anyways, but yeah, going into it here though, Dave Williams is basically the main candidate here, primarying Lamborn. Lamborn has had previous scandals and issues before. As a congressman, he's had some issues generally with, I believe there was a financial issue, and he got in trouble for using a slur in 2011.
Oh.
He got in trouble in 2012 for not attending a State of the Union. He read out a classified part of an unclassified section of a classified report on C-SPAN of North Korea nuclear capabilities. Let me see what else here. Yeah, that's pretty. But I believe there's some campaign finance stuff as well from Lamborn. So there's just a lot of things there. he's never been the most popular guy. I think I forget if it was 2020 or 2018, but I think someone got like a not like bad primary like number against him. It might have been 2018 here. So let me go back here. Yeah, Daryl Glenn and Owen Hill both tried to primary him in 2018. He only got about 52% of the vote in that race. So like there's talk of it. There's talk that polling shows him about even right now. But this is something that could go just like the wayside of the Dinah Titus, Amy Villela primary, where there was a lot of chatter and then Villela got absolutely smoked, which was hilarious in its own right, quite honestly. But
Lauren Boebert is also facing a primary from.
That would be instinctively just very funny. Like that wouldn't even be just regular funny.
Would be
like, that would
wonderful.
Very funny.
That would be incredible.
I would love every part of that.
Wait, she's facing, but like it's not like some dude. She's facing like a state senator. Like this guy's like a real life politician. Like he's not like some like absolute rando, but like state senator. New York Times ran an article that was like, could Democrats flip the Republican primary against Lauren Boebert? Like, Democrats
I bet that guy was like, God damn it! Why the hell would you write that?
It was like we're talking to Democrats who are switching their registration to vote against Lauren Boebert, and I was like, oh my God, this is hilarious.
Oh,
well, look, that's not as bad as the article that was saying that Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat is potentially in play, not in the Republican primary, in the general. There was an article that was really touting the Brandon Flowers, or I think it's Brandon Flowers. Marcus Flowers campaign. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Don't forget, we also, I think the runoff for Mississippi.
Runoff for Mississippi.
Yep.
So 2 taps potential there, of course.
Yeah. Of course, we'll be figuring out if Republican voters want to choose between someone who voted for the January 6th commission or someone who literally supports Medicare for all.
Is it?
And
I know I'm going to give what's going on here.
I'm going to give Dylan a chance here to talk this one, but I believe Illinois 7th district. We're talking about old school versus Justice Democrats battle once again happening in Illinois, in a Chicago-based district.
So there are 2 Illinois congressional primaries
I almost
that
forgot
have
about that
tax
one,
opportunities. Do you want me to go over them real quick?
Please do.
So the more interesting one, I think, is Illinois 7th. Danny Davis is being primaried by Keena Collins, who ran against him previously. In 2020, Danny Davis got 60% of the vote against 3 challengers. Keena Collins was one of them.
I think the best performing one as well.
No, I think she was the worst performing of this. Hold on, let me check.
She was the best performing by like about 1,000 votes.
Okay. Not a high percentage. The difference here, Keena Collins is heavily outspending Danny Davis. He's spent about $100,000 on this race. Justice Democrats in the last month have put $400,000 into the race on their own.
So what exactly did he do? Like that would
not? He's just.
Well, I think the bigger problem is that he's 80 and not progressive enough.
That's
because I thought he was fairly progressive. I thought he was fairly progressive.
The thing is that he used to be a DSA person, but then he left the DSA because he thought the DSA got too left.
So just looking at the FEC disbursements, Keena Collins alone has spent $500,000 on the race, plus $390,000 from Justice Democrats. Danny Davis has spent $130,000 plus $100,000 in outside spending. So he's getting outspent almost 4 to 1. He's getting outspent quite a bit. And he's the reason. So I perked up when you mentioned the Lauren Boebert race, because this reminds me a lot of Lauren Boebert versus Scott Tipton. Because Danny Davis has put up 1 TV ad the entire cycle. And it just went up this week. And 1 radio ad back in March. That's not ideal. So, look, the Illinois machine is strong, but money usually wins in primaries. I feel like Collins almost has to be considered the favorite here, given no polling. You guys have any thoughts on that one?
I think that's an interesting race, that's for sure. There's also, of course, I forgot, but we are going to get a TAPS no matter what, because the 6th district has there are 2 incumbent versus incumbent primaries in Illinois, one for Democrats between Sean Casten and Marie Newman, and then the one between Rodney Davis and Mary Miller down south of the state. So, we're going to get TAPS no matter what on Tuesday from Illinois. No matter what, we get TAPS. Justice
Democrats are about to be headed, I think, for their first incumbent loss and another primary victory. Because I see Marie Newman losing this race to Casten. She's getting outspent. Casten's put in about $1,200,000. Newman's put in about 400,000. So, look, she represents a lot of the district, so you can't discount that. But I do think she is the underdog here.
And don't forget, she's not necessarily had the most prestigious tenure in Congress. She had, I believe, a controversy regarding potentially offering a position to one of her primary competitors in a previous election.
Not giving the position to them.
Yeah. And then, of course, Sean Casten kind of lines up. He's more of like I wouldn't call him a moderate, but he's more in line with like the business-friendly sort of like I
would call him a moderate.
Chicagoland sort of, Bill Foster. He's very similar to Bill Foster in terms of like that area of Illinois in terms of what he represents and what he votes as. You can call him a moderate. I would not call him a moderate, but he's certainly more in line with like what a Democratic trending, formerly Republican portion of the Chicagoland suburbs is than, Marie Newman, who is very progressive and has some liability issues.
But then you have another interesting race this one has been a sore spot for progressives. Illinois' first has Jonathan Jackson, the son of Jesse Jackson, as the odds-on favorite. He's been endorsed by Bernie Sanders. He's been endorsed by the Progressive Caucus. So you would think progressives would be happy. Problem is, 2 crypto billionaire super PACs have put in almost all of the funding behind Jonathan Jackson. Jonathan Jackson has raised next to no money, but 2 crypto PACs put in all the money. And when asked about it, Jonathan Jackson said, "Yeah, so what? Who cares?" Said it's legal for billionaire PACs to support me, so I welcome their support.
You're saying progressives might be concerned by a potentially unethical system that is tremendously harmful to the environment and offers virtually no function to society whatsoever? Is that what you're suggesting?
I am suggesting that progressives don't like scams. Yes. Yeah, so progressives don't.
Let's not be too hard on crypto. It's replacing the dollar.
I think we should be harder.
Oh yeah.
I advocate.
It's totally replacing the dollar.
Yeah. And NFTs are the future of video games too. I'm so excited for the future of NFTs.
No, Kraz, I advocate for taking a harder position on crypto. You say I'm too hard on crypto. I say I'm not hard enough on crypto.
I forget one time someone was like, dude, like, do you realize? Someone told me, they were like, dude, did you realize that like the dollar only has value because we let it have value? But if we all decided that we wanted something else to have value, then it would be like, whoa. And I was like, dude, like, I think you're kind of missing a lot here. There's like a lot going on. You're not processing.
So my first question here is, were they high? Were they high? That's my question.
Smoke less.
I believe they were. I believe at this time they were intoxicated.
Crypto bros may be my favorite genre, maybe my favorite subgroup.
While we're talking about crypto bros, I think people forgotten you're the Freedom Phone guy, the guy who made the Freedom Phone, which is the Chinese phone that was.
Oh right.
Yeah, he's a Bitcoin billionaire. He's also the guy who made a Dr. Octopus suit for himself. So
there's a wait.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, he invented the Dr. Octopus suit. Yeah, he
Hold on.
invented a Dr. Octopus suit for himself, or he
What
made a Dr. Octopus.
What the fuck? I love crypto millionaires now.
Superheroes and supervillains, baby. We're only
I
10
want
to
a
20 years away, baby. Let's go.
I want a
Push it
Dr.
hard, push it
Octopus suit.
hard.
Can I have a Dr. Octopus suit? That sounds kind of fun.
You just look at Teenage Millionaire built a real life Dr. Octopus suit.
And
What's
only
his-
only if we
what's
get to
his
play
name?
Eric
his
Finman.
Spider-Man 2 theme song while we walk around in the Dr. Octopus suit. That's the only thing.
Eric
Need the
Finman.
Spider-Man 2 theme going on.
It's got to be the Pizza Time. It's got to be the
It is
Pizza
a
Time
good-
one for the video game, though.
It is a good theme, yeah. Speaking of Finman, he's donating to Eric's second favorite Senate candidate, Blake Masters. He's put
Oh.
$10 million behind.
Oh, you
Blake
mean the guy who
Masters.
just went on stage in a state full of retirees and was like, "Yeah, let's privatize Social Security. That's great."
Can I?
Eric, why are you? That's literally your favorite position.
Yeah,
Why are you
I don't
hating
want him
on
to say it out loud.
that?
Eric wants him to lie and then do it.
What I want to happen is, you get the 60-seat majority, and then at that point, you're going to lose. At that point, so you just decide, screw it. We're going to just privatize Social Security, and you can't stop us. But I don't want him to say it out loud. No, this is a guy again. I'm going to go on a rant about Blake Masters here for the L, but
Yes.
this is a guy who, over his campaign, has said he wants to overturn Griswold, has said the Unabomber had was a great and innovative thinker. We need to privatize Social Security. Who is he appealing to exactly?
Hold on. You forgot him saying that the problem with gun crime was black people.
Oh yeah, exactly. Is he just trying to hit all the stupid bases here? He's like,
He is-
unlike
He's
idiot,
a ghoul
on
and a
populist
dumb
idiot
ghoul.
bingo. This is like, he's close to a bingo, I think.
He's a ghoul and a dumb one at that. In any other year, you guys would be punished for nominating really bad candidates like Blake Masters and JD Vance and Dr. Oz. You guys are really lucking out here.
I mean,
Thanks
to be
for the
fair, though,
reminder.
I actually am not sure it won't hurt the GOP because, the Senate battleground is literally 4 states. It's Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia. And
I would throw a couple more in.
no, I'm just saying,
Wisconsin.
if you're looking at what states are going to decide, they just majority, right? If Democrats are going to win the majority, hold the majority, or Republicans are going to flip it, right? It's those 4. And there's a non-zero chance that Republicans drop the ball in those states because they nominate Blake Masters, Dr. Oz, Herschel Walker, and Laxalt's been okay, but
I
you know
could,
what I mean.
I could see a scenario where it's 50-50 again because Democrats trade Pennsylvania for Nevada.
Now, you know what? Yeah, hell.
That would not surprise me in the slightest.
But yeah, it's super weird. Just kind of just my political gripe is Blake Masters, what are you doing? You're not supposed to say that out loud. This is the rough equivalent of a Democrat saying, "Yeah, I wanted Medicare for all. In fact, I want to kick everyone. I want to kick you off of your healthcare program and do Medicare for all." That's the rough equivalent of
No, I think this goes a step further.
the way you word that if you're a Democrat, the way you word that if you're a Republican is we need to, I support giving the seniors all the benefits. We don't want to send Social Security. We want to make sure it works for the future, and then you vote to repeal Social Security. It's literally just saying the quiet. You don't say the quiet part out loud. You don't. It's stupid. Don't do it.
Yeah, no, what Blake Masters is doing, all 4 of the things he said would basically be the equivalent of everything Eric says Democrats saying in our group chat.
No, it's so stupid. He's dumb. I don't know what to say. This is what happens when you get a Web 2, Web 3 weirdo who thinks that Arizona is full of cornfields to run for Senate.
Wasn't he an open borders libertarian before he ran for Senate too?
Yeah, he was.
Okay, that's not surprising. I mean, that's the Peter
He followed the
Thiel
libertarian.
ethos.
He followed the libertarian. He followed the Lulbert to populist pipeline, which is just
No, I mean,
you got to explain this pipeline. Explain it.
So I call it the Lulbert to populist pipeline because it basically is like the delusional libertarians that thought Rand Paul was going to be a thing, or Ron Paul was going to be a thing in like 2008. A lot of them have turned out 12 years later to be just like hardcore nationalist populists. And they're just as equally delusional about this.
I like how those are like polar opposite ideologies too.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's all about
Yep.
owning the libs and then owning the cons as well.
Well, it's because they have a couple of things in common. So if you're it's in existence then too. Is the American Conservative some major libertarian publication? No. Did the American Conservative really like Ron Paul in 2008? Yes, because he was the closest thing to a paleo conservative. Well, if you're a hardcore libertarian who is convinced, who doesn't care so much about the economic stuff, but is really doesn't like foreign intervention, you fall pretty well into the populist type. Also, it helps if you have some racist tendencies. That's also a little bit of a benefit there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty simple. Like literally, the Ron Paul was like this weird figure who could unite the populists and libertarians into like 3% of the Republican primary vote. And now
be fair, Ron Paul did better than that.
Wait, I want to illustrate why this is so funny, or like why this illustrates why Ron Paul was never viable. For a while, at least when I joined Reddit, the most controversial post of all time. So like the most votes a post had, where it was like evenly divided, up votes and down votes, was the one from I think it was 2012. That was like upvote for Ron Paul, downvote for Obama, and it was like r/politics was like the main constituency that Ron Paul was like peeling off from the Democratic Party.
There is also a libertarian to progressive pipeline.
Sure.
Weirdly enough, I went on the libertarian to progressive pipeline.
Mm-hmm. The thing is, I think a lot of it does tie into the racial stuff. I mean, if you look at Ron Paul's track record, I'm not going to say everyone who supported Ron Paul in 2008 was a racist, because that's obviously not true. That's not remotely true. However, if you were a hardcore political racist in 2008, you were definitely supporting Ron Paul. It's undeniable. I mean, the newsletters he wrote in the 1990s.
I'm too young for Ron Paul. I'm too young.
Oh, you don't remember this. You don't remember the Ron Paul newsletters. Oh, boy.
I was
too young.
I was too young for the Ron Paul campaign. I
remember the Ron Paul campaign.
I found Ron Paul videos in like 2015.
Speak to us, old wise ones.
Okay, so in the 1990s, depending on who you ask, Ron Paul ran a newsletter that he published to people, like literally mailers. Like he was like this, like the Hillsdale mailers, right? If you ever got the Hillsdale College mailers, it's basically like that.
We're not even remotely this old. You're like way older than all of us. You're gonna have.
I'm 27, but basically this is in the 90s. 27. So I don't look 27, but yeah, he did that in the 90s. He did that in the 90s, and these newsletters were filled with some extremely racist comments.
Yeah, I found out about those
homophobic comments. And when I say extremely racist, like imagine the Blake Masters black people comment multiplied by like 10. We're talking about like opposing Martin Luther King Day, talking about like how lootings and riots were all because of black people, that sort of stuff. Talking about like homosexuals, as it would be called then, were responsible for a bunch of other stuff that, like, if you're a hardcore nationalist populist now, you probably look at that and like, that's pretty good.
Those were the first things that made me go, wait, maybe libertarianism is bad.
So he has insisted since then that while the newsletters had his name on them and were credited to him, he did not write the newsletters and was not responsible for their contents. And so that was like the big thing. That is like, that's why a lot of these really AmCon populist people who did turn out to be white nationalists, like the Peter Brimelows of the world and whatnot, they really loved Ron Paul because of this. The Pat Buchanans of the world, they really loved Ron Paul. Was it because of that? Yes, it was. So this weird pipeline exists where you have these radicalized internet libertarians who are the rough equivalent of today's nationalist populists. Like, they're 15 years old. They've read a libertarian newsletter online and are convinced that they have the secret to everything and that their politics is the future of the world. And so you have them there. It doesn't work. They spend about 10 years in the wilderness, or 4 years in the wilderness, let's say conservatively, because 2012. happened as well. Spent 4 years in the wilderness. Trump comes along, has some things they agree with, the trade restrictionism, the racism, that sort of stuff, and they move on to that. That's like the pipeline right there. That's how you get a Blake Masters going from this technocratic libertarian to populist. But if you look at his positions, there's still some residual libertarianism there. There's this big focus on crypto. There's this big focus on web stuff. There's this big focus on the privatizing Social Security. That's something, if you're a libertarian, you really like. If you're a nationalist populist, you don't.
And it's no coincidence that right now Ron Paul's podcast, which he has, supports crypto.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's this weird circle of the internet.
Yeah,
it's really what it is. It's just this is very weird. It's this very weird circle of the internet, and Blake Masters is the most very online Senate candidate, maybe in recent memory.
Yeah, the Ron Paul stuff is interesting because I think Ron Paul, in a completely different way to Bernie Sanders, had a similar appeal in that they were the type of politician that people looked at and went, I don't know if I agree with everything they say, but I believe they believe it. And that's rare for a politician to the average voter.
The difference is that Bernie had a history of being a prominent member of Congress to a degree rather than a backbencher. Yes. He was prominent in the Progressive Caucus rather than a backbencher in no caucus. And,
that's why Bernie did a lot better.
Yeah, and more specifically, he appealed to a lot more voters. There's a lot more voters in the Democratic Party who are like, I like progressivism. The number of voters in the Republican Party who are like really well interested in that small subset of like paleoconservatism mixed with somewhat libertarianism, mixed with like just a generic social conservatism, were like 3% of the vote, and that's what he got. And I mean,
he did a bit better in 2012, if I recall correctly.
He only did a bit better because he was the only candidate. This is like saying that Tulsi Gabbard, like if Tulsi Gabbard was the only Democrat left towards the end of it, yeah, she did a little bit better in those states than she would have in the earlier ones. Ron Paul was the only other person on the ballot by the time the Romney campaign was over with the campaign. And on top of that, he had succeeded, and his acolytes had succeeded in taking over several state Republican parties because their brilliant idea was that they would not win the popular vote. But what they could do is take over the delegate selection in the Republican Party by winning state Republican parties, take over the delegate selection, make sure all the delegates are libertarians, and have them vote for Ron Paul. And then you get Ron Paul for president without actually him.
So they're doing what we were worried Pennsylvania might do last week.
Pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wait, were the Ron Paul people the original election riggers?
Possibly. They did take over Nevada. The Nevada Republican Party has been controlled by Ron Paul people since at least like 2012.
It explains a lot of things when you think about it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the Ron Paul, look, Ron Paul believed what he said. I have seen the light now that he is a crazy person and a racist. The newsletters were very well hidden.
Yeah, he did a good job of hiding them.
Yeah, especially when you're too old to remember the election. It's like, there were.
But no, the funny thing is, I'd love to talk more about like late at some point on this like online sort of blend of politics, right? Because like now we associate internet politics is associated very, very heavily with like the political left, and when it's not with the political left, it's associated like with these weird Trump conservatives. The late 2000s, early 2010s, it was like libertarianish sort of stuff. You had like you had Republican blog forums. Actually, Republicans were probably better organized online in the early 2000s than Democrats. You know who figured out the Bush, Dan Rather documents were fake? It was the Free Republic. I'm pretty sure it was an online Republican forum that figured this out. And like Republicans are very well organized. And then the 2008, 2012, you had all these Reddit libertarians, the Reddit atheists sort of people they're kind of gone now. I don't think r/atheist is a default form on Reddit even anymore, but like it's
the new
it's very different now. If you go onto r/politics, it is like the most
weird,
left wing place you can go to. Back in the day, was it? Not really. It was a lot. The sort of internet activism we're used to now is very, very different early in the 2000s, and like Blake Masters is very much the leftover of that sort of stuff, in my opinion.
Well, and Blake,
this is a Web 2 guy. This is a guy who's, oh God, oof, my ears.
We're about to see the effects of. We're about to see how far of a reach that ideology has. Because Blake Masters is going to win that primary.
He's kind of struggling. I mean, Lamont is looks like he the most recent poll, I think it was Masters 33, Lamont 26. For the Trump endorsement, you'd think that'd be a little bit higher than 33%.
Would you?
What I would-
Because
yeah.
that's been roughly what the Trump endorsement has gotten. Like JD Vance, Dr. Oz. I mean, in competitive primaries, 30% is roughly where you get.
But there's only 3 candidates in this primary. There's not 5 candidates like in Ohio, and then however many candidates there were in Pennsylvania who were drawing serious attention.
Bronovich, Lamont, Masters. Aren't there like 2 others?
No.
I think there's like it's pretty much Lamont, Masters, and Brnovich, and Lamont is the one who's gaining.
By
in
the
recent
by
weeks.
the end of the Ohio primary, there were only 3. There was,
Mhm.
I mean, it was
I mean, Mike
Dolan,
Gibbons
Mandel,
still
and
pulled
Vance.
like 14%.
Yeah,
Did he end up getting 14?
Yeah,
'Cause I know
he
when-
got double digits.
I know when we
Yeah.
went off, he was only at like 9 or 10.
yeah.
Yeah,
The-
election
but,
day
you know,
vote, especially in around like the Northwest and Columbus area, was pretty good for him.
Mhm. Yeah, but I'm interested to see how the primary goes, mainly because Masters is an aggressively online candidate, and not just the moderns has been in the previous century of the war. Like, this is the guy who, I mean, the Unabomber stuff, like, this is recent, but like the libertarian newsletter stuff, this is like the rough equivalent of like the Kirsten Sinema being a Green Party activist in the mid 2000s. It's like that level of weirdness right there. Except Kirsten Sinema is a genuinely talented politician, and
And a
Blake Masters thinks there are more cornfields in Arizona than there are retirees. So
I mean,
I don't know.
I think Eric will agree that if Masters is the nominee, I like Mark Kelly's odds a lot more than
I would
did
heavily
Rick
lobby to
Perry.
shift immediately to leans Democratic if it was a
Do you think
Masters
polls that
candidacy.
bad?
No, I don't think he polls that bad. I think he campaigns that bad.
Mhm.
I
I mean,
just
again,
think it's funny that the Blake Masters platform is like increase crypto so you can buy illegal contraband anonymously, like condoms. You know, I mean,
it's super weird though. Like, it's like this mix of immigration restrictionism is like this very populist. It's a mix of normal conservative stuff with very populist border priorities and stop the steal stuff. And then there's just this section on crypto and Web3 stuff that is just entirely out of place.
All crypto stuff is out of place in serious politics.
I mean, this is the guy who minted an NFT for his campaign.
Wait, he did that?
Yeah, he was the.
I missed that.
Yeah, JD Vance had the $10,000 dinner. Blake Masters was the NFT, the 0 to 1 NFT.
Wow, two things that have no value.
Yep.
Incredible. And I have to pay
Although they'll have even
$10,000
less
for
value
them?
now because the crypto market is imploding and NFTs are imploding. And everyone except for
Incredible.
Square Enix seems to realize this at this point. So,
Oh my god. Square Enix.
F in the chat for Square Enix.
yeah.
No, they don't
Literally
deserve
sell-
an F in the chat. They
No,
shot
they don't.
themselves in the foot.
Literally
Oh.
sell your American studios to invest in crypto, and then crypto goes down the toilet next week.
Yeah,
Good job,
they,
guys.
they deserve no taps.
But no, like it's this crypto stuff. I'm when this stuff evaporates from the political scene, I'll be very happy. I have gone from not caring about crypto at all to like just genuinely loathing the concept and like waiting for it to die. And it takes a lot for me to be like that.
Well,
They literally just discovered commodities trading. Like all these people heard about commodities trading and they were like, God, that sounds so boring. I don't want to sit behind a desk. I don't want to work on Wall Street. So they just like invented a commodity. They could do
commodities trading from home.
Commodities from home.
Instead of selling something with
There's
value,
George and
yeah.
Post
We have
making-
we have commodities at home.
Instead of selling
Commodities
something
at
with
home.
value, like Disney or Johnson and Johnson or any other company, like we're going to sell pictures of apes. That's their commodity.
Did you guys see the guy who created a TV show based on
Yeah.
his NFT character, got the NFT stolen, could no longer put out the TV show because he no longer owned the copyright, and then paid $300,000 to get it back when he only paid, I think, like $30.
F.
Like,
That's Seth Green, the robot chicken creator. Yep.
oh, Seth Green, how far you've fallen. You made Robot Chicken. You're better than this.
It's not. They're not better than this.
You're better than this.
Every time I go into Twitter and see some celebrity like who I used to like, hawking these NFTs, I'm like, oh no, not you.
The only one I'm okay with hawking NFTs was Mr. Bean, because I'm pretty sure he did it ironically. Because Mr. Bean put out the Mr. Bean IP, like Twitter account, put out NFTs like 2 weeks into the NFT collapse, and I'm convinced it was for the meme.
Well, don't forget, I did an April Fool's joke this year, which I'm disappointed didn't get more traction, was the Election Daily NFTs linked to a Rickroll. I was...
Wait, if we consider turning any of our maps into NFTs, I feel like we could
I support this.
On the one hand,
all we need to do is find an organized crime ring that wants to clean their money, show them we have NFTs. Okay.
I don't think we should be talking about this while live on air. Maybe
you're right. We should be You're right.
Idea.
We should be planning this once we go off air.
I like how the unspoken thing with all this crypto stuff too is like literally like NFTs. Why are they selling for $2 million? It's literally like cartels cleaning their drug money. And then it's like Bitcoin. What's the value in all your money being super anonymous and untraceable? I wonder if it's drugs and child porn.
It is traceable. It is traceable. You can trace.
The worst thing is I didn't even think about that, but that's so true, isn't it?
That's untraceable.
Here's the
I
secret of
didn't
crypto.
think about that.
Here's the
I
secret
thought
of
it was
not
wrong, but no,
untraceable.
it's probably a bunch of
NFTs.
pedophiles and drug peddlers. That makes it
NFTs.
worse, damn it.
NFTs are literally the worst of commodities trading and the art world rolled into one. All the speculation of the commodities market mixed with the money laundering of the art world. It's just into one unholy abomination.
Evil.
Oh dear.
No, like on the one hand, like we could have probably made some money a month ago selling election map NFTs. On the other hand, would I want to sell my soul for that? Maybe.
How much money are we talking about?
Yeah, how much are we talking? Yeah, my soul does have a
we're
price.
lawyers. We're gonna be lawyers.
Yeah, you want to go to big law. You're not going into big law for the ethics.
Oh.
I mean, I'm not going to big law, so
You say that until the big law
Wait,
offer.
you're ruling out big law, Dylan? What the hell? What the?
I want to have sleep.
Okay, well, the money helps buy sleeping meds. It's fine.
I can't get money. I can't sleep with money.
Speaking of ethics in big law, I know we're like very off topic at this point, but this is kind of a funny bit. Neil Katyal, who I think was he was like in the Obama DOJ. He had this whole angry tweet thread about abortion today, and like I'm pretty sure this is the guy who took a 7-figure check to defend child slavery in the Supreme Court for Nestle.
He also said liberals should support Neil Gorsuch.
Wait,
No, he was right about that. That was stupid to not support Neil Gorsuch. Should have saved that filibuster ending for.
I agree. We should
Kavanaugh.
have saved the filibuster. I would have voted against Gorsuch, but we should have saved the filibuster. Save that.
Gorsuch was a relatively uncontroversial. Imagine if Mitch McConnell had to destroy the filibuster for Brett fucking Kavanaugh. Like, come on.
Actually, you know what?
hindsight
This is slightly on
2020.
topic because the two big law, the two people that just advocated that abortion case at the the gun case at the Supreme Court, got fired from big law because of it.
Wait, I want to emphasize this though. By the way, is like, it was Paul Clement who was the main guy who got scuttled from big law. And if anybody knows who Paul Clement is, like he is like the nation's top appellate lawyer. Like when you're in legal writing class, if you ask someone like, how do I learn how to write a brief? They'll be like, read Paul Clement's briefs. Like this guy is like the guy. So like he got booted.
Yeah. That sounds stupid. I don't know about the rest of you.
I mean, look, I don't agree with what he advocated for, but that has nothing to do with his big law job.
Apparently, it does.
I mean,
I think we've gone far off topic enough tonight that might be a sign that it's probably
This was
time
fun.
to end.
This was fun. Yeah.
This was a
But
great
yeah,
night. This was another fantastic night, but I think that's probably a sign that we should
Yes.
end this while we're
Our
ahead.
Friday, changing the show to Friday was the best decision I think we've made.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely, no doubt.
Yeah, we have time for completely random, unrelated tangents to take up the second half of the episode, which I really appreciate because it's really great.
Yeah, and even if we're the only ones who care about it.
Stand beside her and guide her.
But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate your support as usual. Like and subscribe wherever you're watching. You can find us on Twitter at elections_daily, elections-daily.com. Stay tuned for Monday. We're releasing our ratings update. Then we'll tease some of our ratings over the weekend. Again, we're going to release those today. But the Supreme Court decided to pull a big one on us and release a generational Supreme Court ruling. So we pushed that back to Monday. Stay tuned for that. You can follow us all on Twitter. We have our names here. Yeah, we appreciate your support. Stay tuned. Come back next week, same time. We'll be here at the same time, same place. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next week.
Right.